One thing I've talked about on this channel a lot is video game companies that really take advantage of the player base. I've talked about this in numerous cases, for example, deadlines, crunch times, how employees will basically be stuck inside working on a video game in these ridiculous crunch hours. But now the axe has came for Bungie. Now, you probably know Bungie for the Destiny games, how they just complete grind fests and you put in like 5,000 hours for maybe like a rare piece of loot. But me, and hopefully a lot of you watching this video, know Bungie from the Halo franchise before 343 took care of it and basically just killed the entire thing. But on October the 30th, Bungie actually released with the biggest quotation marks imaginable, 8% of its workforce, which was around 100 people. Now, one thing I've noticed with video game layoffs, there's always a very weird conspiracy behind it. It's never just the reason of trying to save money or the employees weren't good enough. There is always a more malicious reason behind it. You had Pete Parsons, the current CEO of Bungie, who put up this tweet of just unimaginable cope. Today is a sad day at Bungie as we say goodbye to colleagues who have all made a significant impact on our studio. What these exceptional individuals have contributed to our games and Bungie culture has been enormous and will continue to be a part of Bungie long into the future. Now, this tweet, like I said, it screams of cope, but more importantly, please don't sue us. We're trying to be nice about it. But it wasn't just those employees that were let go. For example, the composer of a lot of Halo and Destiny's music, Michael Salvatore, if you go onto his website right now, he has pretty much removed all association with Bungie and any games he's worked on. And the description that he's replaced is saying, "Gone fishing."
You're fired!
It's amazing how he uses the same face for both of the descriptions, but the face, when he has "gone fishing" next to it, it looks like Hide the Pain Harold, like he is going through immense suffering. Now, what happens when there's any drama around video games or a video game studio? Reddit gets involved, and you have the armchair therapists put on their fedora, smoke their cigar pipe, and try to basically cope and contemplate how this could have happened. So the first thing the Destiny 2 subreddit did was blame Sony. Now, I imagine that they wanted to do this because they wouldn't then have to blame Bungie, and it actually later came out that Bungie did make the decision themselves. But again, there is that cope of, if I don't blame the company, it's not really their fault. Now, according to Bungie, the reason to lay off 8% of their workforce was all-time low player sentiment. Now, this is probably because when they released the game Lightfall, it had like terribly low numbers in the player base. I mean, do you know what Lightfall is? I actually have no idea what that game is. And also, apparently, in the year of revenue, they missed their projections by 45%. So nearly 50% of the revenue they expected to make, they didn't even make it. Now, that is an insane amount of revenue to miss out on. But you know how you could miss out on more revenue? By not buying this limited edition Gamer Subs Cup. Focus, please focus. This thing is going to drop in a couple of weeks, limited numbers, and once it's gone, it's gone. And the response to this cup has been amazing. One thing you probably shouldn't do is do not go onto my Twitter and don't go through my Twitter likes, because you will basically see dozens and dozens of fan arts of this cup. So yeah, once they're gone, they're gone. And if we sell enough of them, I might get my own flavor as well. Now, another contributing factor might be the upcoming game Marathon. If you know Marathon, that came out before Halo. It was basically the predecessor to Halo. It had this insane, expansive lore, and then it eventually turned into the Halo franchise. But now they're doing a new Marathon, and this is basically going to be like an extraction shooter like Tarkov. So very, very different. The boomers weren't really happy about that, but most of them are, you know, dead and buried at this point. So this will basically be a new generation game of Tarkov. Also, on top of this as well, there was some Destiny 2 DLC. I think it was called the Final Shape, and that was delayed as well. I think that's like the 85th piece of DLC for Destiny 2. I actually have no idea how that game's still going. But apparently this low player sentiment was actually flagged to the highest up in the offices of Bungie, and no action was actually taken until months later. Now, like I said, the CEO coming out being like, guys, thank you so much for spending decades of your life working for us. Please don't make a call-out post on us. Please don't. Guess what happened? Multiple employees have now came forward making call-out posts at Bungie, the work that they had there, the work experience, and the reason that they were unfairly kicked out. Now, a lot of the employees have actually came forward saying they were being like ambushed with the layoffs. They weren't really given any proper notice. Here's your bags, here's your things, get out. Apparently, some of the employees, before even being officially let go, they were locked out of their accounts, excluded from team meetings, almost like to contain them, so they couldn't then go and tell other people, hey, we might lose our job. Now, Michael Salvatore, the music composer, he did actually recently send an email talking about his experience, and surprisingly, it was actually pretty positive. He basically said what any brand does, you know, like don't spread any hate, don't hate on the actual employees that are still left, wishing everyone the best of luck, that kind of thing, which again is kind of weird when if you go onto his website, he's replaced all of his accolades with gone fishing with a very snide smiley face. But other Bungie employees have came out anonymously giving experiences that they weren't really happy with. Now, the thing is, a lot of these have came from like YouTubers and Twitch streamers saying, oh, I talked to a Bungie employee and they've just screenshotted DMs with no proof. So the proof is literally my ass. But still, you could take it with a grain of salt. This morning, my off day, I woke up to a text telling me to make my way to the office for an important meeting. When I got there, the news had already been broken. It was a nightmare. People were crying at their desks, packing stuff up, and I checked my emails and got the unfortunate news I wasn't even told in person. By the time I left, my badge and everything had already been deactivated. I don't know what I'm going to do at all. There's also been some reviews posted about Bungie on the website Glassdoor and other similar review websites, and basically saying how harmful the culture of working at Bungie is. But again, these are reviews that can't really be verified, so again, like source, my ass, there's not really any way to prove this. Now, we know as a fact that 8% of the workforce was fired, but there's some other facts as well that make this really shady. So I didn't even know this was a thing until researching it, but apparently they were fired on the 30th of October. Now, as an employee, you'll get insurance that auto renews every single month. You fire someone on the 30th of October, their insurance lasts 1 day and then it expires. And also on top of that, other employees would lose unvested shares. And these are shares that can only be cashed if you still work with the company. So if you had shares in the company and then you got fired, there's nothing you can do about it. Also, on top of this as well, which is very bizarre, Bungie were working on a new HQ building, which goes to show that, you know, if they're not making their projected earnings, they're down 45% and they had to cut people off because they weren't making enough money. How do you have enough money to then build a brand new building? Now, as we know, Sony owns Bungie, but apparently in a meeting, Bungie literally told them that there would be 0 layoffs during that acquisition. But now, apparently in an IGN interview, this is like the biggest cope yet, they're saying that these layoffs where they fired employees weren't layoffs. It was cost cutting. And if they were layoffs, they'd be upfront about them. But now they're saying that these aren't layoffs. It's cost cutting. Now, like I said, the Reddit armchair therapists burst into action, opening their incognito browser to find any kind of dirt they could, but they were mostly angry that Michael Salvatore, the composer, was openly fired. And also as well, Bungie has been a company that has lasted decades, and they have made some really, really good games. But now it really seems that that company respect has been massively diminished by, you know, basically doing a TF2 spy backstab on 8% of their employees. If you go onto r/Destiny the game or Destiny 2 subreddit right now, both of them are basically on fire. Now, a lot of the Redditors are basically saying they're going to start voting with their wallet, which basically means they're going to try and like chokehold the company by not spending any more money. But again, like Destiny 2 is a game that has been going for, I think, nearly 10 years now, just because the amount of money that people pump into it with microtransactions. So it's basically telling like an old person at the slot machines to stop gambling. Now, the final cope in this saga is Bungie using the word over delivery, like it's this kind of get out of jail free card. So they use this as a justification for not adding any additional content with expansions. They're basically saying that even if we could add extra stuff into DLCs, we're not really going to, because that'll create higher expectations that they then might not be able to meet in the next DLC. This is something Bungie will basically hold on to for dear life whenever the community asks for more PvP maps, more weapons, just any kind of new content. They don't want to over-deliver, which then sparked this infamous Reddit meme. Babe, stop acting like the 45% loss in revenue is our fault. Be careful not to over-deliver again. Now, unfortunately, even though many YouTubers and people have came out about the situation and talked about their experience with Bungie and how the layoffs were really unfair, is this really going to make a dent in anything? No, not really, because unfortunately, Destiny 2 is their biggest moneymaker, and the majority of Destiny 2 players are complete addicts. There are so many videos criticizing this game. Like, for example, I Hate Everything recently released a multi-hour video talking about how bad Destiny was, but still, people aren't going to stop playing the game because of the constant stream of content and that loot grind. And I'll be honest, with the news cycle and how quick everything moves, most people will forget about this entire situation in 2 weeks. I'm very sure Bungie in the offices right now are monitoring the subreddits and just putting their fingers in their ears going, just waiting for it to all die down. What's the moral of the story? Halo fell off after Halo 3.